Harry Baldock here, editor for Total Telecom. We're here on day one of Connected America, and I'm delighted to be joined by Victoria Lamberth, the co-founder and chief revenue officer of ZenFi Networks, which is a BAI Communications company. Victoria, how's the day going for you so far?
The day's fantastic. I've been sitting in at a couple of keynotes and the floor is packed. It's so nice to be really back in a full environment where you get to meet people in person and chit chat. I'm loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good to be back. Firstly, let's kick off by talking about the ZenFi. And how can a company like ZenFi, which is part of BAI and soon to be Bodlin Networks with the Rebrand coming up, how are you helping to bring equitable broadband access to communities in large cities, especially like, say, like New York City?
Sure. So for those people who don't know, ZenFi Networks, we're a digital infrastructure provider. So we build fiber optic networks, wireless siting, network edge co-location in support of overall digital assets. And in an environment like New York City, our role is to help connect the outdoor environment. Our primary customers are large mobile network operators, virtual network operators, who want to come and deliver services to their customers beyond. And so the primary driver for our infrastructure tends to be on the wireless side of the house. And today we hear a lot about the underserved community, and when we hear about the underserved community, we're typically thinking about a rural environment, and people often are surprised to hear in a place like New York City, there are millions of people who are unconnected and underconnected. A recent survey by the American Consumer Group had shown that nearly 33% of New Yorkers do not have home and mobile broadband that's sufficient to serve in the 21st century. So, our role as an underlying infrastructure is to make sure that when we're building those infrastructure elements out for our mobile network operators, we're doing it in a thoughtful manner, that we're taking into consideration where those assets are in the community. And the benefit of being a neutral host like ourselves is we have an incentive to figure out ways to monetize those assets beyond that initial consumer. So when I think about our deployments in New York and when I think about serving our customers, I'm thinking not just about how we can maximize that network to serve our customer, I'm thinking about what are the day two opportunities that we can build to leverage that infrastructure to serve others. And in a place like New York, that often means leveraging our fiber assets to provide alternative service provider access in neighborhoods that traditionally have been underserved.
And in terms of the kind of technologies that are being used to facilitate this, you mentioned wireless, obviously that's got to be backed up by fiber. How do these kind of things all come together? What's the kind of main focus for you at ZenFi?
That's right. So, one of the great things about being a neutral host provider is we're technology agnostic, right? So our infrastructure is there to have others build value-added services on top of it. And what we're seeing is obviously 5G is a huge driver to meet demand in an urban environment, but we're also seeing move towards fixed wireless access through 5G infrastructure. We're seeing leveraging of the fiber networks for an expansion for WISP and alternative internet service providers. And more recently, we've started to evolve our thinking on neutral host infrastructure, not just to be the physical assets, as I mentioned before, fiber, wireless siting, and network edge co-location, but we're starting to also think about how we can own the radio ourselves and provide that as virtual infrastructure to our customers. The idea here being, if we can own and operate the radio on behalf of customers, we can allow new entrants to come into the market and take advantage of the service. In a place like the US, technology such as CBRS and spectrum such as CBRS is opening up and democratizing the ability for neutral hosts like ourselves to build into that virtual infrastructure environment.
And so that leads really nicely to my next question, actually, which is really about sustainable growth in terms of infrastructure, because you have all these options and all these different directions you can go in. What does sustainable growth look like for you guys?
Yeah, so, look, we build infrastructure and have contracts that are 10, 20, 30-year projects, right? So our horizon is long-term. We're not thinking about the next 1 year, the next 2 years. We're thinking about the next 20 and 30 years. And so what that means from a sustainability perspective is, yes, we have to make sure our technology is sustainable, and that's one of the reasons why we build fiber as our underlying backbone of our network. We look at sites that are multi-purpose, multi-technology, multifunctional, that can grow as technologies grow and evolve. But we also look at serving our communities in an equitable manner. We live in this life cycle where our customers come to us, they look for us to deploy infrastructure, we build that infrastructure. As that infrastructure is used, more capacity demands come upon the network, and there's there's more need for additional infrastructure builds. So the more broadly we can build these infrastructure assets today, the better opportunity we have tomorrow to serve those markets.
And of course, ZenFi is a BAI company. I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about where ZenFi fits in the wider BAI portfolio.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, we joined very recently. So we're new to the BAI group of companies. We closed our acquisition in November of last year, and we join a robust group of organizations that are providing neutral host solutions, not just here in the US, but globally. In the US, BAI currently operates 3 other brands besides ZenFi Networks. So they operate mobility, which primarily serves the in-building environment through neutral DAS systems. Transit wireless, that primarily serves connected transit platforms. We do the MTA in New York City, BART out on the West Coast, and a host of other connected train platforms. And we also have a company called Signal Point, which is the infrastructure provider to military bases. You know, when we came to the BAI group of companies in the US, we were a natural fit into that environment because though transit and mobility were doing, you know, a significant amount of work in the outdoor space, it wasn't their primary focus. On a ZenFi basis, our primary focus is serving the outdoor environment. When we look at these companies all together, we can bring a handset from inside an apartment building, down the elevator lobby, out onto the street, into the subway, back up to the office building, and ultimately to the ball game at the end of the day. Being able to provide that host of assets to our customers is something that's really important to us.
Such an interesting approach when it's that holistic. It's very exciting. And one last question for you, Victoria. I know you're going through a rebrand quite soon. I wonder whether you can maybe tell us a little bit more about that and the new name.
Yeah, fantastic. So we're very excited about this rebrand. We're coming under a new name called Bolden Networks, and that will be available at the very end of June of this year, so we're quickly approaching it. You know, when we all came together as a global set of businesses under BAI, we realized there were all of these competing brands that offered very complementary products and services to our customers. Our customers were finding it a bit difficult to figure out, well, who are we engaging with these multiple brands, and we thought, you know, an easier way for our customers to engage with us is under one brand. That brand is Bolden Networks, and the idea behind it is we want to bring this forward-looking, innovative view to the digital infrastructure space with a long-term focus on digital equity and inclusion, because at the end of the day, we're responsible for connecting our communities globally.
Sounds like a really exciting time for ZenFi, and I hope the rebrand goes well. Victoria, Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you. Thanks for talking to me today.